Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal. WoW's next major update, patch 11.1 Season 2 update, should be arriving sometime soon, somewhere around February, which means now is a pretty good time to start getting prepped for the next major update. And there's a few different ways the players are getting ready, either by leveling new characters they plan to play in the future, gearing out those characters to make sure they can jump into Season 2 content, or trying to make sure that the coffers are nice and restocked in order to have all of the consumables as well as all of the crafting gear ready to go with the arrival of some brand new content. Gold making in WoW is definitely a skill on its own and can be quite complex, especially if you're trying to maximize your gains as quickly as possible. Though Blizzard fixing majority of the fast ways to get rich quick schemes, it's hard to make a lot of progress outside of serious investment or finding ways to play around the auction house. However, in today's video, I did want to go over a couple of different ways that players have been trying to make gold while waiting for the patch 11.1, going over all of the simplest and easiest methods that any player can get into, and I wanted to go over all of those methods in today's update. As always, if you guys want to see more guides like these for the War Within expansion, be sure to follow the channel and subscribe. But otherwise, let's dive right in. So I've never really been that great when it comes to the auction house or maximizing my profession gains, but I always found little ways for my alts or my main to make a little bit of gold on the side to make sure that I have enchants as well as consumables for raid content, dungeon content, but also to make sure that my alts have a way to make their own gold without necessarily drawing from a main in order to craft all of the pieces of gear. This isn't necessarily a get rich quick scheme type of video, but rather how to start to build up your reserves ahead of the patch 11.1, primarily focusing on all the simple yet effective ways to make a bit of gold on the side. First one of the easiest ways of getting into it is just doing some world quests. That should always be considered and should always be an option. They're fast, they're quick, and there's a lot of different world quests for you to take advantage of in Khazalgar. You just gotta scan your map and do as many of them. They reward you with additional gold. Also, being able to do skywriting races, those also do give you a decent bit of gold as well, so they're definitely worth doing. And a lot of these objectives are really quick. You don't have to invest a lot of time into them, and you make a little bit of gold on the side, and they're also great if you have multiple alts that you can do these objectives on, because that's a little bit of gold that you're making for every single one of your characters, and if you need to pull it together, that's a decent bit of gold overall. Another method that I've heard people actually start to use on Siren Isle, since that is the new zone and many players are now trying to find ways to maximize gains from the zone, which it's not really great for gold gains in particular, but there is something that some players have had success with, and that is being able to buy some of the items on the vendors, specifically 2 items, and listed them on the auction house. Now, most of the items on these vendors are bind and pick up or bound to your warband, so there isn't really much you can do in terms of listing them on the auction house, if only you could though. But there are 2 items that can be listed, and that is the toys. They awaken supply crate from the earthen vendor and also a supply crate from the Arathi vendor. Both of those crates cost 750 of the flame blessed iron, and other players can actually buy it on the auction house and add those toys to their collection, which saves them having to buy it with flame blessed irons themselves as they're trying to farm up all of the different transmogs as well as all the different collectibles themselves. Now, I was very skeptical whether this would be worth buying, and I bought a couple, but apparently players have tried this strat and listed them on the auction house and have had purchases out of them. So apparently the supply caches in the boxes for the earthen apparently do sell. I wouldn't invest too much gold or too much resources into these. I would probably just buy a couple and see if they sell in the auction house, see what the prices are looking like. But if you want to find a way to convert flame blessed iron into something that can potentially sell, apparently the toys are selling for many other players. At least that's what's been reported recently. So that could be something to give a try to, but I wouldn't overcommit into this strategy specifically. Now, there's many different ways in order to use professions within War Within in order to make gold, whether you're trying to craft new items for other players, for leatherworking, plate, mail, cloth, or potentially even weapons, trinkets, gems, and other types of consumables from enchants and even food. But if you're someone who wants to potentially score big, then you could try engineering. Now, engineering won't necessarily grant you a good way of making consistent gold, but if you're someone who wants to have a bit of fun with RNG and maybe a little bit of gambling, then apparently gambling with engineering specifically, it could potentially be very profitable. So engineers having access to a recipe for a crowd pummeler mount, which is a very, very rare mount that goes for quite a pretty penny over on the auction house. And the parts for this mount are also just as rare as the mount and can potentially net you quite a decent bit of gold. And depending how you spec your engineer as, you might actually be able to pilfer some of these parts for the crowd pummeler 230. And essentially what you want to do is find some sort of an item that you can pilfer through with the ability of pilfer through parts. It could be anything like bolts or potentially even gears or other items that you can create on your character. And as you pilfer through those parts, you have a chance to disassemble those parts, usually getting a lot of scrap out of it, but also a chance to get pieces that are required for this mount. And some of those components for the mount, which is very, very RNG whether you get them or not, can potentially go for quite a bit on the auction house. Now, to get started, most players recommend going 40 points into inventing, about 15 points into ingenious, and 30 points into scrapper, and then picking up parts. Ideally, you would want to put all 40 points into parts, but at least picking up the base version allows you to start to pilfer for components for the mount. So it may take a little bit of skill points investment in order to be able to fully optimize this, but it doesn't really take too long for you to at least get started trying to see if you can RNG some of those pieces. And the items you're looking to create yourself to pilfer through is gyrating gears with junk buckets, which you can purchase from the engineering profession vendor Bismuth, as well as algarite, which can either be mined yourself, so you could either combine this together with mining, or you could invest some gold in the auction house, buy all the resources, make a bunch of gears, and hope that you get lucky with some of those pieces. If you're trying to be very, very conservative, try not to play too much with your gold, then you should probably do mining, fly around, collect some bismuth, acarite, and then create a bunch of gyrating gears, then pilfer through them for a chance at some of those mount parts, which can actually go for quite a decent bit. And if engineering is going to be your preferred gold making method, the bit of gamble in here, then resourcefulness will be your best stat to invest into, which is going to be a stat you'll want to try to achieve either through a potion or some sort of a buff, or to try to see if you can get resourcefulness on your gear when you craft it. By no means is not a consistent method of making gold, but if you're somebody who likes a little bit of RNG, there is an opportunity for you to make a lot of gold back from this method, at least based from what I've been able to see from other players' reports. Now, another way the players have been able to make passive gold is actually by running delves, and this is especially good if you have a bunch of alls that you're gearing up right now or are looking to level in the future. Every time you run a delve, you have a chance to get materials from those delves with tinderboxes, hides, Kaheti oils, or ring and deeps materials, and those could also sell for a decent bit depending on the day over on the auction house. You can either farm random delves for gear, which makes it convenient as you're trying to gear a character. You're also getting bonus items that you can list in the auction house, so you're kind of hitting two birds with one stone here. But usually most players would run Nightfall Sanctum and farm it endlessly to get as many tinderboxes, which generally do sell for a decent bit. Not as good as they used to, but they still do make you a decent bit of gold if you're just looking for some sort of content that you can endlessly farm. Also, as you run through delves, you're able to collect the Undercoin, which is a warbound tradable currency that you can switch around from all of your characters, and then from Sir Merlgaton, for 500 of this currency per, you're able to get 3 random delve reagents. And just by running delves, whether you get good mats or whether you don't get good mats, you all of a sudden would have an opportunity to get more of these pouches. And as you open the pouches, the amount of mats in there can be a little bit varied. Sometimes you'll luck out and get tinderboxes or the charm caps, the oils, the hides, or the ingots. And you can list these items over on the auction house and sell them as they are, or you could do a little bit of manipulation. Like I have 3 Kaheti oils, 3 charm caps, and 5 ingots, and you can compare the prices of these. Over in the blacksmith area, actually right next to the blacksmith station, there was a vendor called Borgos, and he allows you to trade up 3 of any of the lower quality reagent like the ingots, caps, the oils, or the hides for a tinderbox. So if, let's say, Fathom hides, 3 of those are going to be less worth than a tinderbox, you might as well get a tinderbox, and then you make a little bit more gold that way. In some cases, oils and charm caps I've seen usually 3 of those, usually a less worth than a tinderbox, so I usually trade up when possible. Sometimes though, you will have hides or days when ingots, for some reason, 3 of those are worth more than a single tinderbox, so those you'll actually keep as they are to try to maximize your gold gains. But sometimes trading up for tinderboxes can allow you to gain a little bit extra gold down the line. However, if you prefer simplicity when it comes to making a gold, you can simply fly around using a gathering profession, either flying around mining or herbing, or ideally both. And ideally you'd want to do these professions on a druid so then you don't have to dismount in order to mine or herb on the character. Technically, you can learn the ability to stay mounted while still mining or herbing around, but being a druid has always given you a little bit of advantage when it comes to gathering professions, so you might as well utilize it if you do have a druid as part of your alt roster. It's a good idea to start working on mining and gathering professions, especially in prep for the patch 11.1, because in Undermine, there's a good chance we'll get different types of herbs and different types of ore, or potentially different kinds of same ore that we've had. Maybe they'll have extra additional reagents, or some kind of like an elemental item that you potentially could loot. And having those professions maxed out and ready to go for the patch 11.1 will potentially allow you to make a decent bit of gold now, but also very decent bit of gold once the new update officially goes live. If you are just choosing to fly around collecting herbs and ore, then finesse is going to be your best enchant when it comes to farming all of those materials out in the open world. So make sure to enchant your tools and use a finesse potion or any kind of other buff that provides you with additional finesse in order to maximize all of your gains as you roam around the world. However, if you're not a big fan of professions, but you'd rather find a way to farm out gold, then you're actually in luck because Mechagon Farming is still alive and healthy as of today, where all you have to do to get gold is to go to the island of Mechagon located off the shore of Kotiris, and inside of Mechagon in the Junkwad Depot, all you have to do is run around slaying enemies in the zone for materials that are still used by players right now to this day in the patch 11.07. The BFA Island drops unique materials required for tinkering, which was a unique activity on the island of Mechagon, and all of these items and reagents are still usable to this day thanks to the big BFA mount of Johnny. Johnny's trash pile requires you to complete a Farewell to Arms achievement, which is kind of like the BFA zone completion achievement, and one of the things you'll have to do is go to all of the old zones, including Mechagon, and complete all of the open world activities there to earn all of the achievements. For Mechagon specifically, it includes a lot of farming of scrap in order to invest into tinkering as well as island projects, and it's a pretty big grind overall. So many players are choosing to skip that grind by dumping thousands of gold into the auction house to be able to literally purchase scrap themselves. Though you don't purchase scraps directly, you have to get these specific items from the island of Mechagon and then use a recycler in order to be able to recycle those items into something more usable. And all those items that you would put into the recycler, all of those items can be listed over on the auction house. You're looking to farm enemies for their springs, gears, as well as plating, which are the items needed for the recycler, and you just simply list those items over on the auction house. The plating is not that lucrative. The gears can be alright, but the springs, for some reason right now, they're the most lucrative and they can cost players quite a decent bit of gold. On their own, a single spring isn't much, but you need at least 30 springs, 10 plates, as well as 5 gears, and then combine those items together in order to get the recycler going to get you some of the usable materials. So players are having to buy these items in bulk, and running around slaying enemies and looting them as a max level player right now is incredibly easy. It's basically one of the best mindless grinds out there. Perfect grind to have a live stream or potentially one of my videos over on the other monitor while you work on them, which requires zero profession investment needed. Just roam around, kill enemies, and loot stuff, and then list everything that you find over on the auction house. But as always though, I do want to thank all of you guys so much for watching this update, and I do hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did enjoy it or found it informative, go ahead and give this video a like. I would very much appreciate it. Join our Discord down below if you want to catch all of the regular patch 11.1 PTR updates, which we'll be posting about pretty regularly. Also, there's a bunch of different guides, like the guide for the Johnny mount that is available on our Discord as well. Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below, and as always, I'll see all of you guys in the next one.